We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It is Sunday. It is Christmas Eve for those of you that celebrate Christmas. For those of you that don't, it's Sunday or whatever it is you celebrate. I wish you the best. Hopefully, you have a great new year and 2024 looks better than 2023. And frankly, how could it get worse? It's been a mess. And we can only hope that things do get much better in 2024. And I truly believe that that's what's going to happen. A lot of things we've had to deal with are going to culminate. People are going to be held accountable. And while we may not be out of the woods through 2024, we'll be headed the right direction. And that's probably the best we can hope for. Things will be better. But people always said when it came to COVID or even Donald Trump, I can't wait till when we're back to normal. Well, the question is, what is normal? Was it normal where we were in 2015, pre-COVID, pre-Donald Trump? Well, in our minds it was, but that doesn't mean it was good. There could have been some improvements back then. And I think in addition to all this difficulty that we've gone through, it's going to be a tough transition into normality. But I think a lot of things will end up being better for what we've gone through. So again, people will always accuse me, oh, you're too positive. What else way is there to be? If you can't be positive, if you feel like you can't win, if you have no hope, what are you going to do? Curl up in a corner and cry for the next year and a half, 2 years? No, you have to assume it's going to be good. You look at the facts, and if the facts tell you that it's good, instead of going with your emotions or your defeatist behavior, uh, look to the positives and strive for the positives, and you will get some positives. Trust me on that. Anyway, so we're right in the middle of the Christmas holidays for the folks that celebrate Christmas. Um, Yesterday, we had a kind of Christmas get together with my wife's side of the family. You know, when you've got kids and grandkids, everybody's got different things planned, and my wife is very flexible when it comes to getting together for the holidays. In fact, my two sons and my granddaughter, my wife and I probably won't get together till a day or two after Christmas because it's just so fucking busy. Um, but we had a good time. It was fun. Some kids there, my granddaughter and my grand niece and grandnephew. My niece's kids. And of course, um, whenever kids are involved with Christmas, it always makes it a whole lot better. I'm happy to report that my granddaughter was adorable as ever. Well, until it got a little later. Things got a little rough when she had to leave. I contacted my son when they got home. I said, is she asleep yet? He goes, no, it's been kind of a rough night. She didn't really get a nap today, and she had a lot of sugar. And I can attest to that. I watched her eat the sugar. So she was a little owly, put it that way, by the time she left the party. And when she got home, I give my son credit because dealing with that little girl when she's in an owly mood is taxing, to say the least. So anyway, we did that. We're going to probably take today off a little bit, and tomorrow I got to go to my brother's house, and then ultimately thereafter, we're going to get together with my two sons and my granddaughter. So there's still plenty ahead, and you just you got to kind of enjoy the holidays. The presents and all that stuff are great, but really what this is about is taking some time off of the bullshit that we've dealt with all year long. There's a lot of stress and strain and trials and tribulations, and it gets very, very difficult for people to handle this. As I've said before, I get people contacting me all the time suggesting that they're anxious, they're worried, they're upset about what's going to happen, what is happening, what isn't happening. And the fact of the matter is um, if you can teach yourself to not worry about the things you can't control, life gets a lot easier. And trust faith and fate and look at the facts. And that's what I do in the current situation we're in. I see things moving the opposite direction from where they were, in our direction, if you will. And I'm feeling pretty good about it. While it doesn't happen as quickly as any one of us like, it is happening. And once the momentum gets going the right way, then we're in good shape. One thing you got to do in life, I've learned over my 63 years, got to have a little fucking patience. Not everything comes immediately, not everything comes exactly when you want it. But if you wait and you do what you're supposed to do and you stick to it, you'll get what you're looking for. No question. All right. Now, if you came to the show today on this Christmas Eve and you were thinking, oh boy, Mike's going to come out with some hardcore news information, it's going to be highly produced, well, you're going to be disappointed because it's Christmas Eve. Not a lot of stuff is going on. People have other things to do. And I really thought to myself, maybe I shouldn't do a podcast on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. And I thought, well, Christmas Eve, that's not really the holiday. So, yeah, I should do it. I'm on a track to do this show every day, and that would just be lazy not to do it. So, here I am. That said, I don't have as much of the news information, the new news to talk about. Fortunately, I do have a lot of emails. And I do have the ability to talk. Not necessarily in terms of quality, but I got quantity by the truckloads. I can talk forever if I need to. Now, I won't do that here. We'll talk about some actual things instead of me just bullshitting around. So let's get to the emails right away. We've got a number of them, and I'm not sure how long that's going to take us in this podcast. And once we get done with the emails, then we've got a couple of news stories, and we'll do what we normally do with the Rational Boomer podcast. Oh, by the way, I'm getting tons of Trumplefucks hitting up my TikTok. They're getting worried. They're getting very worried. They're grasping on to any win they can get, and there ain't many, if any at all. Um, it's kind of an annoyance seeing all these Trumplefucks show up on my TikTok comments page. But it's also gratifying because I know we're winning. And this goes back to what I said earlier. The tide is changing, the paradigm is shifting, and we're seeing it because these people are nervous, and we should take some joy in that their lives are becoming more difficult because of the choices they've made in their life. All right, let's get to the emails. This first one comes from Paul. It says, "Good morning, Mike. Regarding what if attitude. Many moons ago, I removed the what from what if in my vocabulary. When looking at one's personal life issues, resorting to what if denotes uncertainty, resulting in sleepless nights and pearl clutching. Going with just if leads to evaluation and determination of a positive solution. Example, what if I do not get approved for a new mortgage? What will I ever do? Versus if I do not get a mortgage, then I will do this. In short, life is full of successes and failures. The best approach is a positive attitude." I didn't read this before I said what I said earlier, but we're simpatico here. So something as simple as using this vernacular bolsters positive thoughts. So if Trump does take power, he will fuck himself again, and sane Americans will step in to right the ship. Thank you, Paul. The more positive look at this, using the logic and the information we have, he's not going to be president again. There's just no way that's going to happen. Paul, thank you for the insight. It's I couldn't agree with you more. People look at outside things to make your life, to make things happen in your life. The fact of the matter is, it's you. It's what you say, it's what you think, and it's how you act. If you act negatively and you expect the worst, that's probably what you're going to get. If you're positive, confident, and push forward and do what you need to do, you're going to come out a lot better when it's all said and done. And I'm not saying that because I read it in a book. I'm not saying that because somebody told me. I'm saying that because I'm 63 years old and I fucking actually experienced it. That's why when you say, you always have hope, you make me feel better. You think I'm just saying that because I want you to feel better? I want me to feel better too. And because I know that I can kind of bring that positivity into my life by projecting it in the first place. All right. The next one comes from Darren. He says, "Hey Boomer, just got done listening to Howard. He was on the show a bit ago. Hope he comes back. This is the first time I've got to listen to him. Best line ever was when his dad was watching the news and he said, 'Oh, you changed the channel.' Beautiful line. Just saw Ron Johnson clip when Caitlin Collins interviewed him. He just keeps saying Democrats have been doing this for years. Of course, he had no sources or facts, and he would have the evidence next time. Of course, there's no shame with these people. Thanks for all you do, Darren." Yeah, I saw that too. That's the way it is with Republicans generally. If you say you did something wrong, they don't address it by saying, "No, I didn't because," or "Yeah, I did. You're right." They say, "Yeah, but the Democrats do it," or somebody else does. It's always diversion, distraction, and it's gotten old. It really has. It's almost embarrassing listening to these people say this shit. I'm embarrassed for them. It's absolutely ridiculous. And it's no longer working. It's funny that they haven't recognized that, but they haven't, and they keep doing the same shit. All right, the next one comes up email from Pee Wee Pam. Don't know how you got the name, Pam. Curious to find out, send us an email. I'm assuming that you're a smaller woman. Anyhow, hello, Mike. As an older boomer, I follow your daily podcast with eagerness and delight. I too am becoming impatient with folks panicking about the polls, recent news, hot topics, etc. So I'm sharing a quote from one of history's greatest minds, the Mahatma Gandhi. "When I despair, I remember that all through history, the ways of truth and love always won. There have been tyrants and murderers, and for a time they can always seem invincible, but in the end, they always fail. Think about it. Always Pee Wee Pam." Absolutely right. You can't get it better from a better source than Mahatma Gandhi. And he's absolutely right when you think about it. We have our bad times. We have our flare ups of fever blisters, if you will, but they always do go away. There's always some resolution to it, and it never bodes well for these evil fucks. All right. The next one comes from Javier from South Texas, unfortunately, Texas. He says, "Hope all is well. The orange bitch not on the ballot in Colorado. Your thoughts?" He's going to appeal like everything else. Meanwhile, do you think they've got to put his disgusting name on the ballot? When we think he's hit bottom, he never does. He always finds a way to back out like a long rat tail. When will his diarrhea stop? Thanks for your continued and tireless work. Happy holidays, all. Javier. Well, Javier, the one thing I will say about what you said, you act as if nothing has happened to Donald Trump. There have been no consequences to Donald Trump. And that's just not true. The fact that he's not in jail isn't the only thing that Donald Trump is going through. His life has been upended. He sees a future of possibly spending time in jail. Here's a guy that's not doing well, and you can see it when he talks. This guy has a lot of stress and strain hanging over his head. I get this from a lot of people. A lot of people have in their minds that nothing is being done until he goes to jail. Well, the fact of the matter is there's a lot being done. He has 91 felony charges. Let me put it to you this way. People are really concerned that Donald Trump will become the nominee for the Republicans in the 2024 election. Some other people are even concerned that he could actually become president. And I don't know why you give him that much credit, why you feel he has that much power, because his position is more tenuous than you imagine. Again, it goes back to, oh, woe is me, think of the negative when you should be thinking of the positive. Let's take a look at the positive. In the next 30 days, Donald Trump will have all his money and all his property taken away by Judge Engoron in New York. And that's problematic for Donald Trump because he'll be broke as a bitch. Now, I know people are going to say, well, he'll grift his people and they'll send him money. Well, that's starting to wane. He's not getting as much money as he once did. Secondly, he's got a lot of things he's got to address with said money. He's got to pay tons and tons of legal bills. He's got to continue leading his luxurious lifestyle. And then he's got to also fund a campaign for the presidency some of you think he's a shoo-in for. That's untenable. That's not going to happen. He can't handle all these things. And this is the best it's going to be unless he gets convicted of a crime, which he almost certainly will. Now, people are all worried about this thing in Colorado. We've got the Supreme Court in Colorado says they're going to take him off the ballot, which is probably the right thing to do. So he, in turn, Donald Trump, appeals it to the Supreme Court. And Jack Smith says he's pushing him on the other issue with the immunity, but they're sending it to the Supreme Court. And everybody's worried that the Supreme Court is going to side with Donald Trump. Let me explain a couple things, too. We have the other situation with the immunity. The appellate court has it currently. Donald Trump claims he's fully immune from fucking everything. It's going to go to the appellate court. They're going to hear arguments on January 9th, just a couple of weeks away. And at that point, they're going to turn him down. There's no question. That's just a silly fucking argument. Then it will go to the Supreme Court. In spite of the fact that Jack Smith said, let's hurry this up, and the Supreme Court said, no, the fact of the matter is it's not going to delay this thing any more than a couple, 3 weeks, maybe a month. And that's fine. If they start in April over March, it's a 2-month trial. It means it's going to end in June, well before the election. So people don't need to get real excited about this. Now, the interesting thing to note when they turned down Jack Smith is that it was just one line. They didn't say who voted or anything like that. I suspect that the Supreme Court saw that the appellate court's coming up pretty quickly here. That's moving through the case. It's not going to be delayed a ridiculous amount of time. That this is an unprecedented situation because it involves a former president. They want to make sure everything is right. Now, in this immunity case, if you think there's any chance that the U.S. Supreme Court is going to side with Donald Trump, you're wrong. They can't. It would cause way too many problems. So when that immunity charge or claim is set aside, that means Donald Trump's defense in that case and pretty much every other case is gone. A big part of his defense is taken away. You still think he's going to be the nominee? You still think he's going to be the president? Come on. And the last thing is with the Colorado thing, it has gone to the Supreme Court, and there's a number of ways they can go through that. But it's going to not take forever to do this. I believe the federal courts, including the Supreme Court, are getting a little sick of dealing with Donald Trump, you know? They're going to want to get this done, and they know that this is time sensitive too. If they agree with the Colorado Supreme Court, that basically takes Donald Trump off most, if not all, of the ballots in this country. He cannot win the presidency. He's broke. He has no defense for his crimes, and he can't be on the ballots and cannot win. Now, even if they don't do that, he still has those other two issues hanging over his head. So when people say nothing's been done, that's ridiculous. There's been a lot of things done. And the idea that Donald Trump still has a shot to being president of the United States just seems utterly ridiculous. It's not going to happen. Donald Trump's got too much hanging over his head. He's like the bully. Well, you know what he's like? He's like, and I was never a big fan of Monty Python, but remember that one with the knight and he gets an arm cut off, and he says, "Oh, it's a mere flesh wound." You remember that sketch? Um, anyway, that's what Donald Trump is doing, and unfortunately, some people, including Democrats, are buying the bullshit. All I've got to say is stop, because it is bullshit. All right, the next one says, "Hello, Boomer. Man, what a show. It's most likely SCOTUS will overturn Colorado's Supreme Court decision to take Donny Boy off the ballot, which opens up a huge can of worms. The Supreme Court is already reeling from the expanding of the Thomas scandal concerning investigations into Republican lawmakers and billionaire donors. The court has or is considered totally corrupt anyway. Couple that with the Roe versus Wade decision blowing up in their faces, the Russian Republicans must be losing their fucking minds. You're correct in saying other states will follow suit because of this. The Republicans must be realized that the Orange Jesus is a loser and will totally lose them everything. This is real evidence of your prediction that Trump won't be the Russian Republican nominee. It is a real possibility now. This is unbelievable. Now, that's what I call entertainment. Thanks, Boomer Z Man. And see what Z Man did there? He saw this thing that everybody thought was a negative, and he sees the positivity of it. You know, the thing about it is people look at the superficial things and they take it for what it's worth and they think it's important. But there are much deeper parts to this whole situation. There are things going on that you don't know or I don't know. I just know that we're headed the right way and Donald Trump is fucked and there's no way out. I mean, put it this way, if I was Donald Trump looking at my situation, I'd be in despair because I would be smart enough to know that I've got no way out. You don't clear 91 felony charges with district attorneys that have a conviction rate of 20 or 98%. Odds just aren't with you. Now, Donald Trump may be delusional enough to not believe that or think he still has a chance or he can find a way out. I guarantee you, the people around him are smarter than that. And they see what's exactly happening. And this is when the whole thing for Donald Trump starts to fall apart. I will say this, the people around Donald Trump, they've hung on a lot longer than I imagined they would. I thought they'd be long gone. That would have been the smart thing to do. But I gave them too much credit for being smarter because they're fucking not. Thanks, D man. I appreciate the email. Hey, Boomer, what I'm going to tell you will make you laugh. I'll be the judge of that. I'd rather hear Mariah Carey's All I Want for Christmas song year round than hearing that orange shit stained bootleg boss hog Comedy Central looking motherfucker bitching about the 2020 election with that annoying voice. Yeah, I like that. Melania, aka I'm not now. There you go. You put a word in there I'm not going to say. It's hard to believe Mike swears all the time, but there's one word I won't say at the behest of my wife and just common sense, aka the third, starts with a C, got the nerve to lie about how hard it was to get into the United States to immigrants that were trying to get into the country illegally. Bitch, shut the fuck up and go back where you came from. Here's the main reason why I'm emailing you today. I didn't hear anything from the emails you read today. I saw a video of two fuck publicans getting their Brokeback Mountain on in the Senate quarters. He's talking about some porn video that was taken by a staffer for a Democratic representative of two men having sex in some meeting room in Congress. Yes, there's a video of this gay sex tape, and thank God it was edited, and it was with two white Republican men. It was Republicans? I thought it was a Democratic representative. Well, I guess it doesn't matter. Republican or Democrat, the whole point is this is probably not preferred behavior. It goes on to say, I wonder who was in that video. Matt Gaetz, Jim Jordan, Mike Johnson, or Rob Pussyantis? I think you mean Ron DeSantis. Anyway, I might as well call them the. Now, see, this is starting to sound a little homophobic, Gene. This is Gene in Southern California. I'm not calling you out, but um, I got limits. Um, he goes on to say, "Yeah, I'll just bitch slap his awkward pussy ass, and thank you for keeping me informed. An Old Soul is on once a week now. I'll call the second segment the Old Soul Report." Anyway, the fuck publicans got second segment the Old Soul Report. Anyway, they got fucking nerve to hate on LGBTQ, and they're too busy filming themselves getting their Brokeback Mountain on. All right. Happy New Year, Gene, in Southern California. Now, Gene, here's the thing. I know that you're an ally of the LGBTQ, but you got to kind of be careful how you word shit because some of it sounds a little disrespectful. I'm not saying you are disrespectful. I'm not even saying you intended to be, but people are very sensitive and you got to think about what you're saying. And I'm certainly going to think about what I'm saying after being on the radio for what, 35 years. As much as it may seem hard to believe, I do know the limits, the lines I can cross. Now, when I was on the radio, my lines were pulled a lot farther back than they are now. But even still, at this case, I don't feel comfortable saying everything. Whether these two men were Democrats or Republicans doesn't matter. Whether it was a gay thing or a heterosexual thing, it doesn't matter. The problem here is that there is video of two consenting adults having sex in a meetings chamber in Congress. That is a fucking problem. That is a problem and that needs to be addressed. But when you compare that to all the other problems we have in this country, yeah, it's not that big a deal. That said, I understand your point, and I'll try to clear it up. I know your point, and I'll try to do it in such a way that is hopefully respectful. What you're suggesting is that Republicans are looking to marginalize the LGBTQ community. And that's true. They're homophobic. There is no question about it. But at the same time, they're hypocrites because some of them are, in fact, among the LGBTQ community. Lindsey Graham, for example, or some of the others. Um, so the confusion is, well, why the hypocrisy? Why would they do that? Who knows? They're all about power and money. They're not about people or love or rule of law or anything like that. So I get your point. I get your point. Gene, when you get me to blush, you're fucking doing something. I'm telling you, you're fucking doing something when you get me to blush or get me to go, whoa, whoa. you know that's uh, that's a problem. All right, next up. This one comes from Bo. He says, "Hey Mike, listening to the podcast this morning with Old Soul, teaching keeps ringing in my ears about balance. The teaching is framed around we get balance from the land and being in ceremony. As I watch the deterioration of the system, I think about this teaching. I wonder if this is a time our ancestors talked about when people became so sick they poisoned the land and themselves. With love and blessings, Bo." Well, you make a good point. You see what's going on in this world, in this country, and it seems that people are in a very destructive mode, not only with the earth, not only with our ecological aspects, but with one another. And you have to wonder what brings that on. And you have to try to figure out what's going to end it and get us to go the other way. Sometimes things have to get to their worst before they get better. And I think that's kind of what we're looking at now. Things have gotten badly, and if one thing goes the right way, other things will work better. What I mean is if you have the Democratic Party win in 2024, the presidency, the House, and the Senate. Then we'll see things start to change. People in Washington, D.C. will be working for all of us. There'll be more efforts made for climate change and the ecology of this country. But the point is that it's up to us. We have to feel that we've gotten to the point where it's just too far, that we want to make that change. We have to get out and vote. We have to get the right people in office and then push them to do what is right. That's the problem with this country. We can't sit back on our laurels and hope for the best, because sometimes the best will only come if we push the issue. And that's whether we're talking about Republicans or Democrats, it doesn't matter. Who's ever in power, we still have to keep pushing. That's why I've said before, if the Democrats take control of the House, the Senate, and the Oval Office, that doesn't change anything for me. I'll still be out here talking the same things I'm talking about, because it's not about Democrats and Republicans to me. It's about all of them versus us. We're the ones that have been neglected. This country has been neglected from both sides. The first step is to put out the dumpster fire, to get rid of Donald Trump and the Republicans, and then focus on the Democrats and push them as hard as we can possibly do it to make sure we get some changes. One change begets another change, begets another change. And we've got to take it a step at a time. We can't look at everything and say, we got to fix all this right now, or it becomes insurmountable and it's impossible. So I think we're on the right track. And I think what you're talking about with the ancestors might be very well what they're talking about here and now. They predicted what was coming, and anybody could have predicted it, really, because just by the virtue of how people are. They're greedy, they're self-centered, and they're looking for their own self-enrichment. Once that gets out of control, we find ourselves in the position we are currently in. But change is coming. We're seeing it every day as we watch television or read the news. It's slow, but it's sure, and it is coming. So you don't have to worry. Just do your job, keep pushing, never give up, and keep watching and be patient, because what we need is coming. All right, we'll take a quick break and we'll be right back. All right, we are back on the Rational Boomer podcast, moving through the second half of the program, and the emails continue. A couple of real good ideas have come out of the podcast in the last couple of days, this emailer says. One was the benefit of Hunter Biden coming to the microphone. It completely humanized him. He should do Saturday Night Live, even poke fun at himself a bit. It would be a home run. I don't know that we'll see that, but I get your point. Second was Old Soul's idea of Biden doing everything he can to pardon and or support these women who are victims of the Republicans' abortion madness. Those stories are heartbreaking and enraging. I hope that folks who matter are thinking of these things. I'd like to see Biden and Dems play offense more without coming off as weenies. Can you imagine if Clarence Thomas was a liberal justice? I've only absorbed TikTok stuff for maybe 6 months. At this point, you and a handful of other creators are my main news source. Boomer, one thing I really appreciate about you is that you don't make the content about yourself. You don't let you become the focus. I imagine it's tempting to do so at some point, and I see other creators doing that. You have it mixed just right. That being said, a Rational Boomer t-shirt wouldn't be the end of the world. Maybe a simple Stark pencil sketch of the image from the podcast. Just saying, probably sell 10,000 or so. That wouldn't hurt anyone. Best, Garage Door Jeff. P.S. I always shorten names. A guy could be named TJ and I'd call him T. I'd already shortened Old Soul's name to Soul in my head when I heard you call her old. Soul has completely internalized the abortion issue for me, admittedly for the first time. I know what you're saying about some of the creators. I've talked about this before, how creators will get on TikTok and they'll get a large number of followers. And, that's kind of heady. People like the fact that other people support them, and you can get kind of a big head with it. I have to understand, I've worked in radio, and one of the biggest bits of advice I have gotten, and it's done well for me. You will get people that hate you, you will get people that love you, and it's best not to take too much to heart. What we do on TikTok is not real life. It is basically me. Um, and as far as talking about me, I'm not that interesting personally. So there'd be no point, there'd be no interest in me hyping myself up. And there's enough news that we have to deal with. I don't have time to talk about myself any more than telling a story here and there. Um, I'm very close to hitting 300,000 peers, as I call them, not followers. I'm not a leader in that sense. Um, and somebody was talking to me about it, and they said, "That must be great, 300,000 people following you." And I said, "It is great, um, but I don't see it as necessary something for me to celebrate." Well, I mean, I will celebrate it, but not because of me. What I find more rewarding about having that number of followers, and granted, I'm not as big as a lot of people, but for me, it's a lot. What's really important to celebrate with that many followers and the circumstances we're in here with the Rational Boomer is that I went out, I said what I said, and somehow, some way, we were able to gather 300,000 people of a like mind and bring them together. And when you want to get anything done in this life, in this country, you got to do it in numbers. No matter how many followers I have, I can do nothing on my own. I need more clout in the sense that other people believing the same things. I think a lot of times when I talk on TikTok, I'm not necessarily giving anybody any information that they didn't know or didn't feel, but I'm verbalizing it and getting people to say, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, there's two comments I get more than anything. One of them is, I'm very anxious and you make me feel better. And that is probably the most gratifying thing about doing TikTok, to actually come out here and do something on TikTok or in the podcast and actually do somebody some good. I can't ask for much more than that. But the other thing a lot of folks say, you say exactly what I'm thinking. Either you don't feel comfortable verbalizing it, you don't have the platform, or you're just forced not to be able to say something because people around you, bosses, what have you. And that's exactly right. I'm trying to just say those things that all of you are thinking and say it loud and in a way where hopefully we get attention. And then when we do that, hopefully we can get some results or have some impact or some power in what we're trying to do. It's important issues. We're not talking about anything, how great Mike is or how we want to do this or that or the other thing. All we're simply trying to do is trying to make this country better and safer, ensure the future is going to be good for our kids and grandkids. That's all we're trying to do here. And I think we're headed down the right track. We haven't made it all the way as yet, and but we'll get there. We've been doing this for 3 years, and I'm approaching 300,000 peers. Um, who knows what's next? I personally think things are going to get a little crazy between now and 2024, the election day in November. So we're going to ramp things up a little bit, and we're going to collect as many people as we can so that we can have some impact. I mean, that's what really happens when um, somebody gets a lot of followers. You have a certain amount of impact, a certain amount of credibility and legitimacy. And once you have that, some people go the way of trying to tell you how great they are because they did this. That's not what I'm going to do because I know that's not the case. The reason people come together with the Rational Boomer TikToks and the podcast is because of what we're worried about and what we're trying to do. And as long as we keep that focus, I I'm good with it. I'm I don't there's no value in me out here promoting myself or telling you um sob stories like some of them do. I don't have any sob stories, so there's nothing to tell there. Now, as far as a T-shirt, I have contemplated that whole T-shirt thing or the hat thing, and I'm just not really sure how to do it. The first step I've got to do is get a logo for the Rational Boomer, and I have in my mind something retro, something very basic. But I don't make logos. I know some people who do, and I've had them do it, and it really wasn't what I was looking for. So when I can come up with a logo that I feel good about, then maybe I'll do something with t-shirts and hats. The idea that I'd sell 10,000 of them, I don't think so. But it doesn't matter. Frankly, I would do the t-shirts and the hat, and any profit derived from that, I would we could find some kind of charity to give that to. And I'm not looking to make money off Rational Boomer by selling T-shirts and hats. But if there is some people out there that want it, I've always done what I can do to work with people and listen to what listeners say. So I appreciate your input. All right, the next one is from Paul. He says, "Okay, Mike, I just want to make sure I get this right. Trump asked SCOTUS to take their time on the DC ruling so it interferes with the election, and in the same breath asked them to expedite the Colorado ruling so it doesn't interfere with the election. Is that about right?" Two questions. First, is SCOTUS supposed to take him seriously? Second, will SCOTUS take him seriously? Just curious. Your alternate universe friend, Paul. I honestly, I didn't hear that he asked the Supreme Court to rule on it, but yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he did. That is kind of important. He doesn't want to lose Colorado, even though he has no chance of winning it anyway. But that does set a precedence, and we know there are anywhere from 12 to 16 other states in the process of trying to do the same thing that Colorado did. So this poses a pretty big problem for Donald Trump, and he would like to see the Supreme Court knock it down. I think the fact is he feels like that particular decision he's more confident in terms of his immunity. He knows he's not going to win that one. So it's all about his own best interest. And that's not surprising. Now, whether or not the courts are seeing through Donald Trump and are getting tired of his bullshit, I think that's the case. I mean, you think about this, the Supreme Court, every other day they're getting something appealed to them from Donald Trump. They got other things they've got to do, and they don't want to seem like they are the supporters of Donald Trump, especially when they know that Donald Trump is going away at some point. They're smart enough legal minds to know that Donald Trump can't find his way out of this. So, yeah, I think they're getting tired of it. I think that ultimately they will answer these things both pretty quickly, relatively speaking, certainly in time, because they understand the time sensitivity and they understand what kind of heat they're going to do if they give the appearance of supporting Donald Trump. And by them turning down Jack Smith regarding the immunity thing, that wasn't a support for Donald Trump. That was just covering their asses for the process. I think once they get it from the appellate court, they'll probably react to it pretty quickly. But having Donald Trump ask for two different things, not surprising. He's not a bright man. He's not somebody who's very, very sharp. So he's flailing right now. He's trying anything and everything, and it's not going well for him. All right, the next email. Dear Mike, I heard what the Orange Boys said about immigrants poisoning this country's blood, and I was like, how? Does he know that the immigrants who live in the United States, no matter what ethnicity, they have worked hard their entire lives, including all of the other immigrants that are in this country and working their butts off to provide food for their families. Doesn't Trump know that he was married to an immigrant and also our parents from a third world country? I'm like, how the Republicans are trying to impeach Joe Biden, but I'm tired of the poor intelligence because they don't have any. I was surprised to hear that the Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas wants a raise or else he'll resign. And I was like, go right ahead. Well, that thing with Clarence Thomas, that happened in 2000 or thereabouts. That's already been taken care of when they hooked him up with their billionaire sugar daddy. So he's got his money and he's fine. As far as the immigration thing, doesn't Donald Trump know? I'm sure he probably does know, but you have to understand with Donald Trump, it doesn't matter. He will say anything and everything to enrich himself. If he's got a problem, he'll say one thing one moment and another thing the next. There is no logic or common sense or anything that ties to what Donald Trump says. It's all about reaction, it's all about emotions, and he just spews forth when he's in a position. And this is why he's awfully often contradicting himself. Now the emailer goes on and says, Mike, I heard after you had a podcast episode with Howard, and I want to congratulate you on having, he says, 30K followers on TikTok. It's actually not quite 300,000 at this point. I'm glad to be a part of the Rational Boomer podcast and a listener of your community. I'm excited about what's going to happen during the year of 2024 and how my generation is going to bring it to the Republicans and show up to vote blue because we millennials are tired of Trump. Republicans and we want to protect women's health care and abortion rights, climate change, and to hopefully have a ceasefire in the Israel versus Hamas war. But I know that's not our war. I was listening to your podcast episode when you were chatting with Old Soul, and my heart breaks for Brittany's pregnancy trial in Texas and how she's going to jail for her baby in the toilet and how she wasn't offered assistance in the hospital. I listened to that episode when I was in my dad's car going to happy hour, and I hope she can fight for her rights when she gets out of jail. I hope you have a great and relaxing Christmas holiday with your family and your loving granddaughter and sons. I got two of them. Trevor. Thank you, Trevor. Trevor's been on the show before. He's emailed frequently. The stories that Old Soul tells about women who are having to leave their states and stay with her to get a needed abortion, either for medical reasons or whatever. Um, they are tough to hear, but it's important to hear them because I think too many people look at abortion as just a black and white issue. I'm for it, I'm against it. But there are people suffering and struggling in between there. And we need to know how bad it is for them in order for us to take a proper stance on this issue. I think we can all agree that women should have the right over their own body. If you take that away from them, a constitutional right away from them, that should be a red flag because once they take one constitutional right away, they will take more. Um, Old Soul is doing good work. As I've said, she's not only talking the talk, she's walking the walk. She's a special person. Not many people will do what she does. And we're very lucky to have her on the podcast. As I've said, people have asked me, where can I follow her? You can't. She's not on social media, believe it or not. If anybody should be, she should, but she's not. The only place you're going to hear her is on this podcast. And I'm absolutely gratified that she's chosen to do that because she's a wonderful lady and she does some wonderful work. And I learn something from her every day that she's on the podcast or when she writes an email. All right. The next email says, Hi, Boomer. My favorite movie is To Kill a Mockingbird. Ed Jones brings it up a lot. We came so close to naming our daughter Scout, but we chickened out at the last minute. But when you say that the Koch brother must know that Trump is going to drop out of the race, it reminds me of a scene from my second favorite movie, Napoleon Dynamite. Well, there's a combination. To Kill a Mockingbird and Napoleon Dynamite. In response to Uncle Rico's lame football video, Napoleon says, That's the worst video ever made. Kip then correctly retorts, Napoleon, how could you even know that? There is no way that the Koch brothers knows that Trump is going to drop out. First, because there's no way Trump will voluntarily quit the race. He's fighting for his life. And like Jace said, he don't quit. I didn't say he was going to drop out. He could be forced out. This Koch brother's a billionaire, right? Do you think he's putting a bunch of money into Nikki Haley, just hoping for a miracle? These people don't do that. If for no other reason, they're seeing the writing on the wall as I'm seeing it. They're seeing Donald Trump put in a situation that's untenable for him, and he won't be able to survive it. The pressure will be too great. There'll be too many things, too many hurdles from him becoming the nominee and becoming the president. I'm not saying that they've got some inside track that they know for sure that Donald Trump is going to drop out. I don't think Donald Trump is going to drop out. I think he's going to have no choice one way or another, either his health or legal issues or just the mental strain that he's going through. Something's going to stop him from being the nominee. Now, I could be wrong, and as I've said before, even if I'm wrong, I'm fine with it because Donald Trump will be the easiest candidate for the Democrats to beat. He goes on in the email. Second, there's no way Koch could know what's in Trump's head, even from his lofty position. Now, let me add here that if Mitch and the Republican power guys have a secret plan for Trump, he'd be in on that, but I don't believe that either. Well, I don't know well, there might be a secret plan because Donald Trump is dragging down the Republican Party. All the Republicans know that if Donald Trump is the nominee, they are going to lose. Fact of the matter is, they probably know whoever is the candidate, they're going to lose. This is going to be a bad month in November of 2024 for the Republican Party. They're not going to do well in this situation, no matter who is running for president. I'm not talking about a plan that the Senate has. I'm not talking about um, one of the Koch brothers knowing that Donald Trump has a secret plan to drop out. I don't think any of those things are true. I think that given the circumstance and everything surrounding it, something will stop Donald Trump from running for president. That's all I'm saying. I don't have any secret insight. I'm not a psychic. I don't know. I'm just looking at the facts. I'm looking at the facts as they're laid out and trying to figure out how any human being could get through that, let alone a 77-year-old man who's in ill health mentally and physically. I just don't see it happening. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'm just going by what I see and taking my best guess. Now he goes on to say he's investing in Nikki Haley, hoping for the outcome. And don't forget he's putting up millions is like you or me bidding 250 at a charity auction or something. Yeah, I don't know. That's a good comparison. These people don't waste money. They're trying to take down Donald Trump. They know he's a loser. That's the only reason why they're taking him down or trying to take him down. If they thought he could win, they'd be putting the money behind him. But most of these people don't play fair. They usually game the situation. I'm just not sure how they're going to do it in this situation, but I've got a feeling Donald Trump is going to be incapable of running for president in 2024, whether it be the 14th Amendment, whether it be the financial woes, whether it be that he's in jail. I don't know. But here's the deal. This case in March in Washington, D.C., even if it is delayed, say 2 months, and it's not going to go till May, you know what's going to happen then? Then Alvin Bragg is going to start his case in the Manhattan District in March, since now that it's open. So we're going to have a case in March, maybe a case in May. And between now or between March and the election, Donald Trump will have to be in court for every one of those trials because they're criminal. He won't have the option of staying home or screaming from the balcony. He's going to have to be in there. And a guy like Donald Trump cannot be forced to do that sort of thing without some bullshit coming down, something bad happening. And that's exactly what's going to happen. He goes on to say, now, I think Trump won't be the nominee because he'll lose to Nikki in the primaries. I think there's a hidden cohort of Republicans just wanting an alternative so badly that explained DeSantis' premature momentum. Then what becomes interesting is what kind of shit show the Republican convention becomes. Is it like a mini January 6th? Good grief. Boomer, I must ask, if Trump and Nikki and Christie won't be the Republican nominee, who do you think will be? Best Garage Door Jeff. P.S. All your guests are great. Of course, Old Soul and Chicago 8 Ed are the rock stars. Eric is so well informed, and Jace is insightful and funny. Dan gets fired up, and it's awesome. You had a woman guest sometime back with a great laugh. Be good to hear her again. Absolutely. Anybody who wants to be on, all you have to do is email me, and we'll put you on. We've had a lot of good fortune with our listeners coming on the show. They're always good shows. Who will be the nominee? I don't know. I think at some point it's going to be the Republicans saying it doesn't matter. They may put Nikki Haley up, but I'm reluctant to predict that because she's a woman and she's not white in the traditional sense. Um, could be Chris Christie. It could be virtually anybody. That's why I'm saying this is why I like Donald Trump, the fact that Donald Trump is hanging in there. If what I say is true and he doesn't end up being the nominee, the closer we get to the election, the more scrambling the Republicans are going to have to do, and the less likely they're going to be able to mount any kind of um, competition for the Democrats. All right, the next email. Hello, Mike. I've got a question for you. Many people would like to have a safe online space for your awesome listeners to learn, teach, and socialize together. I have a lot in common with most of your audience, so I'm certain I'm not the only one who feels this way. The biggest priority is security, in my opinion. I will research it in case you think it's worthwhile idea. Having support is critical to our mental and physical well-being, especially during these times. I'd really appreciate a rational community online, and I'd also be willing to pay a small monthly fee to maintain such a place. Okay, that's all I have at the moment. Just finished listening to you and Jace. Great show. Thank you again for everything. Have a safe and happy holiday to everyone who celebrates. Kara. Um, I don't know much about that, Kara. Um, I'm not opposed to it. I mean, if people want to get together and talk and interact and share information and ideas and ask questions and get answers, I'm all for it. You'd have to educate me more on this care. I mean, what are we talking, like a message board, something like that? I mean, that's how old I am. I'm talking 90s fucking computer talk. I don't even know what that would be, but I'm not opposed to it. I'd be happy to talk to you about it. All right, the next email goes on and says, Good afternoon, Mike. Hearing the Supreme Court has basically said, no, we're not going to make an immediate decision. We're not going to expedite deciding whether or not Donald Trump has immunity, absolutely made my heart sink. I'm trying to listen to the news and find something positive. It's really hard at this point to think that the Supreme Court isn't going to cover DJT's ass. Amid the discovery, thank you, Detroit News, of yet another recording of him, an RNC chairwoman, urging Michigan not to certify the 2020 vote. It's just disheartening to think that he'll possibly be allowed to drag this process out and keep anything from being decided. As I said before, don't get too upset about this decision from the Supreme Court. I think they saw that the appellate court was meeting on January 9th. They would have a decision some point at that point. And um, by taking it on early, it might save Jack Smith 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe a month at most. And that isn't enough time to really cause a problem. So they thought they'd better be safe than sorry, especially when they're dealing with a former president. It's not something to be really concerned about. It's really not. The Republicans would make you think it's a big win for them. They didn't win shit. Donald Trump has 91 felony charges. He's going to lose all his money. And if the Supreme Court sides with the Colorado Supreme Court, then he's out of business. He's out of the election. Donald Trump's situation is very tenuous at this point. Nothing is going right from him for him, and he's hanging by a thread. So don't let bullshit worry you. Don't get caught up in all the hype you might see in the media or with the Republicans. Not that big a deal, and it doesn't put Donald Trump in any better position. Now, the emailer goes on to say, I anticipated that Jack Smith can appeal the decision, I hope. It's just another part of Trump's delay tactic, and I can't fathom the thought that the Supreme Court would participate in that to help him. I don't think they would. There's nothing to gain for them by doing that. All it would cause them more problems if they sided with Donald Trump in the immunity thing, especially. It's hard to say what they'll do with the Colorado Supreme Court, but the immunity thing, there's no way they side with Donald Trump in that situation. It's too ridiculous. It's hard to believe, but knowing how much corruption there is in our government and especially our Supreme Court currently, I'm not convinced that things will be fair. I'll be interested to hear your thoughts on this and how you think it might play out. As always, Mike, thank you for your common sense and insight. Judy, Crazy Cat Mom, Oregon. Yeah, like I said, I don't I don't worry about what we heard there. Sure, it's disappointing. I would like to them to take it up that day and say, no, Donnie, you're not immune. Fuck yourself. That would have been the best thing possible. But given all the circumstances, given that the appellate court has moved along pretty quickly, I think what I get out of what they did was they know what they're going to do with it. There's no question. They're not going to side with Donald Trump on the immunity thing. They just want to get it right so there's no backlash and no problems. It'll be fine. I wish they would have done it quicker, but they don't. They're not going to. So maybe we add a couple, 3 weeks to the process. But if it gets Donald Trump out of the equation, I'm willing to wait. We waited this long. All right, the next email, Mike, I appreciate that your TikToks have the dated display. Not everyone does that. For example, I like to listen to Glenn Kirshner, but often I find that the post is months old, yet labeled as breaking news. I often scroll past his posts because I assume they're old. Yeah, and I will tell you this: I do put my dates on my TikToks, and I do that because I had a number of people that follow to ask me to do it. I thought, well, that's a fucking simple thing to do, no big deal. So I do it. But I'm running into the same situation you are. When you watch TikToks, you don't know if this is current news, if it's 2 months old, if it's a month old, what the fuck it is. So it is a nice reference point for me if other people were to do it. And so I'm happy to do it in response to what viewers were asking me to do. Finishes up by saying, honestly, I prefer your podcast with just you or with Ed. Cheers, Don. Thank you, Don. This may be the last one here, and we're running out of time. Once again, an all email show. Hi, Mike. At first, I was pissed about the Supreme Court denying Jack Smith's request for an expedited ruling. The more I think about it, I don't expect it to cause too many problems. It might delay the D.C. January 6 case. However, I still expect that the D.C. January 6 case should start and end before the election. The Supreme Court might be waiting for the appeals court in order to take the heat off of them. They could just agree with the appeals court and move on. I was also thinking that after the New York fraud trials takes his money and property, that he will no longer have the resources to keep appealing and delaying the cases. Yeah, there's something to be said for that. I also read that certain Colorado Republicans are threatening to ignore or not hold a primary if the Supreme Court upholds the Colorado Supreme Court decision on Trump. However, that's illegal by Colorado law. It amazes me how often the Republicans openly snub the laws in order to get their way and support dirty diaper donning. Yeah, Republicans everywhere seem to be willing to do that. I hope Republicans keep fucking up like they did Friday, supposedly in Georgia, Pennsylvania, and Arizona. The Republicans think they can just redefine words to mean whatever they want and get their way. They're trying to pass legislation in those states calling the border situation an insurrection and citing Biden's unproven China ties as reasons to block him from the ballot. They think they're doing something when in reality they're looking fucking stupid. I doubt those measures pass, let alone get upheld in court. These are performances for an audience of one. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Talk a good game, but not going to work. These these are examples of what happens when you kick reasonable Republicans out of your party and settle on incompetent politicians and anyone who will run. Joe Biden pardoning any federal convictions of marijuana was long overdue and also brilliant. As far as I know, any of these individuals who got pardoned not only get released, but if they don't have any other felonies on their records, they will get their voting rights back. How many more votes will Biden get from former inmates who have gotten their freedom back? Thanks and happy holidays to you and all the listeners of the podcast. Eric. Thank you, Eric. I appreciate that. And it was a brilliant move. In all this talk about how young people aren't voting for Joe Biden because of his stance on Israel, what's a way to get some of those young people back? I don't even think that was a thing. I think that's just Republican bullshit. But by doing what Joe Biden did, he showed he's um, working for the young people. That was a great gesture by Joe Biden. And it was the right gesture to make. We're in a country where we have too many people in jail, and we have a lot of people in jail for smoking or holding on to marijuana. It's fucking ridiculous. We're not talking about violent crimes or anything like that. We're just talking about kids or young people, or even older people smoking pot, which is now becoming legal in so many states, including my own. This was a long time coming. There are other presidents that could have done this, should have done this, but they didn't. But Joe Biden did. And this was a good move, along with still trying to get people uh, uh, forgiveness on their loans. He's doing it bit by bit. And then doing this was a big deal and a big help in getting that youth support. So hats off to Joe Biden for doing the right thing and also the smart thing. All right. We're going to wrap up the Rational Boomer podcast. I want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen. I hope you have a great day. And of course, we'll talk to you again tomorrow.